How's it going, everyone? Mike here with the Super Show Roundup, the show discussing our favorite superhero shows on TV right now. It's going to be a weekly show taking place every Thursday afternoon for the duration of the TV series season. First show on the list is Agent Carter. Now, for anyone who read the review of the premiere, I do want to retract some of the negative things I had to say about it. It was not exactly as bad as I had at first assumed. I do believe maybe it was a little too much Agent Carter that one night. It really didn't deserve the 2-hour premiere because it wasn't necessary, but all in all, it is a really good show. You know, the dynamic between the cast is very time-fitting. You know, it does acknowledge the fact that women after the war were not taken seriously at all as workers, employees, and Agent Carter, Peggy Carter, would not have been taken seriously as a field agent in the SSR. So it makes sense why the dynamic is the way it is. I do rather enjoy it as a timepiece. I love Hayley Atwell as Peggy Carter. She still is Peggy Carter like she was in Captain America. She hasn't lost that. It hasn't gone to her head, which is great. She really hasn't had an opportunity to develop Peggy Carter yet, and I'm glad that there is this show to grow that character a bit more. Now, if you did read the review, you would see that I really liked Kyle Bornheimer's character Ray as the comic relief of the show, and I'm a little disappointed to see that he died so early on, especially. I know the show is only, I think, 8 episodes, so yeah, they need to develop things rather quickly. I am still really disappointed, though, that his character died. He was the comic relief. He did have that whole thing where he's got a wife and girlfriends. You know, it was funny. He was the relief of the show. They're in a time that it is fairly serious. He was that guy who you can always count on for a laugh on screen. So it is a little disappointing to see that he's gone, but you never know. With Marvel, no one's really gone, so he may come back next episode, may come back next season if they do a next season. Alright, so next up on the list is Gotham. Now, I actually really did not like the mid-season finale of Gotham. I thought it felt like just your average episode of a show, so I was really disappointed with it, but so far, already, this show's delivering better than it did in part A of the season, which I can appreciate. You know, this is when the climax is supposed to happen. This is when big things go down. I know that we missed out on that with the mid-season finale, but I really think things are about to pick up with this show. I can really appreciate the inclusion of Dr. Tompkins, especially as a younger, more attractive version than what we're used to, and as a character who Jim Gordon kind of has a thing with. You know, with a character so broody and so dark as Jim Gordon in this series anyways, we needed him to have someone that is lighter, someone that is grounded in not necessarily reality but in their own life, because every character needs that anchor, something to bring them back to reality, and thankfully he now has Dr. Tompkins. I hope to see more of her. I hope that this continues on. She was great in the first episode of the season, of season 1B, and she was great in the second episode as well. I really do like the actress playing her. I can't pronounce her last name, so I'm just going to skip it altogether. I appreciate the chemistry between the actors. There's more chemistry there than there was between Jim and Barbara, and I really didn't like Barbara as a character, so I can really get into this new relationship. I can appreciate Carmine Falcone's reaction to what the Penguin had to say about Liza. You know, it wouldn't have been something easy to swallow. I love the dynamic between Penguin and Falcone. It's so father-son, but abusive father type of relationship. I love it. I love the tension there. There's so much more to grow on. It's so meaty. Like, there's just so much more that they can do with it, and I'm really excited about where it's going to go as characters, you know, as Penguin develops, as Falcone develops. I'm really glad that Falcone just took out Liza. You know, I thought she was a great actress. I liked her as a character sometimes, not really, but I love that he did what he had to do to not only end something that Fish had in the works for a little while now, but assert his dominance with his family again, because I know Fish is super shady, super, I want to take over the family. I like the fact that Falcone is really just putting his foot down and asserting his dominance with this team, you could say. You know, Arkham Arkham was actually really interesting to see the inside of. It looks like the perfect breeding ground for crazy. It already has bred some craziness already. So I'm curious as to see how much more Arkham will be a focus of the show, because we know that a lot happens in Arkham throughout the Batman series, the Gotham, anything to do with Gotham, Arkham has always been a very significant part of. So I'm very curious as to see how much of Arkham we'll get to see. If we'll see more villains coming out of there, more bad guys, even good guys. You know, you never know who's gonna live, die. You never know how this character is gonna, or how this story creator is going to spin things. You never know who's gonna be the good guy in the end. You never know who's gonna be the bad guy in the end. You know, anyone could turn on anyone at any time, because this is a fairly different version of the Gotham we're used to. We don't even know really what time it takes place in, because you got really old cars, but you've got cell phones, and you've got different technologies that didn't exist at different times, and even the dressing, the costume design is very, very strange, because you still, it's a mystery. The whole show is still a mystery. We don't know all that much about Gotham just yet. And like I said, I'm curious to see how much more we'll see of Arkham and more of Gotham, and I'm looking forward to seeing the villains like Poison Ivy and Catwoman grow up, but I'm also glad that Bruce and Selina aren't the largest focus so far of this series, or of this part of the season anyways, because I like Jim Gordon. I want to focus more on Jim Gordon. It's not necessarily fair that Ben McKenzie gets this show to himself and he's got to share a large portion of it anyway, with two young kids who aren't really all that important to the story, the story of this show. You know, there's the story of finding who killed Bruce's parents, but that is not the greatest significance anymore. So I'm glad that Bruce isn't the greatest significance of the show anymore. He's not the main focus anymore. I loved this version of the Electrocutioner. I really appreciated how creepy and how planned and organized he seemed, but he was still too cocky to think that a splash of water could have defeated him. That was the most badass way Jim Gordon could have taken him out, because it was simple yet effective. And you know, all this chaos was caused and Jim just ended it with a splash of water. Fairly anticlimactic, but still just what the audience needed to understand how big of a badass he really is and how resourceful he is. I love it. I loved the Electrocutioner. I loved Jim Gordon's response to him. And I actually really like to see the mob working with Jim Gordon. It was interesting to see that no line is unblurrable on the show. You know, they worked together. He was under Jim's custody, and Jim protected him, which was cool. You don't see a line like that being blurred that often on TV anymore. So I appreciated what they did with that. You know, like I said earlier, the show was not all that climactic before, but this is the time for it to pick up and shine. I'm really excited about that explosive moment where the climax just finally happens, because we still haven't quite seen it, but you can tell it's about to happen, because there's tensions brewing between the mob families, there's tensions brewing between people in the force, and then there's Arkham included. There's all these different cesspools of chaos that are just building up. Eventually it's just going to all explode in Jim Gordon's face. I'm excited to see how he handles it in his first year of Gotham. I'm also really excited to see the Red Hood on the show, which has been confirmed, and I'm glad that it hasn't been confirmed as any of our main characters. I'm interested to see who it is, who the actor is, and how they play out that story. I'm also really excited to see costumes on the show, you know, secret identities. It's the introduction to all of that starts it all. So I'm really excited to see where this goes with the Red Hood and the climax of the show. Next up is The Flash. Now, I loved the finale of The Flash for the mid-season. Now, I loved the first episode or two, you know, or the first episode, sorry. The way it played out picked up right where it left off. Barry had motivation to excel his skills so he could be faster, so he could be better than the Reverse Flash. I love this motivation. You know, he had the motivation all along, but before this face-off, it never really was all that evident to Barry that this was a necessary thing if he wanted to beat the Man in Yellow, if he wanted to beat the Reverse Flash. Before it was kind of, I've got to find him and kill him. Now it's, I've got to be better as a hero, as Barry. He's got to grow as a person, and he's got to grow his powers to be able to defeat this guy. Now, Harrison Wells is still super shady. I know Tom Cavanaugh came out and said that he is the Reverse Flash. There's something I don't buy. I can't see it being that simple, as he's been the villain the whole time because he wants Barry to live. Why would he beat himself up? Why would he save Eddie? Why is Eddie still playing in my mind? I don't get it. There's more to it than that. I think Tom Cavanaugh may have given a blanket answer, but I don't think it's as simple as he is the Reverse Flash. Because then again, who was wearing the suit when Tom Cavanaugh was beaten up? That it doesn't make sense to me. I think that there's multiple Reverse Flashes. I'll get into that with the super fan theory at the very end. Stay tuned for that. I'm excited to see more of this, though. I'm also curious as to where Gorilla Grodd is going to play into this. We saw mention of him earlier in the season, so I'm curious as to see how they play out a talking gorilla, if he's even talking. But he still has powers. He's still super intelligent, so I'm curious as to how it's going to play out on the small screen. I do think that this show so far has been very good at displaying special effects. So, you know what? It may be better than I'm thinking. I'm excited to see it, though. Seeing the rogues on this show, Heatwave and Captain Cold, was great. People were calling it, before the show aired, a Superman 2-esque battle. I loved it. It was so awesome. Barry was so intelligent with the way he had them cross streams. I loved the Ghostbuster reference. And I loved having Eddie save Barry at one point. We don't see Eddie all that much. I'm still not the biggest fan of his character, but he's growing on me now. I do think somehow he's going to play into being a bad guy, so I'm not getting too attached to him as a character just yet. It was nice to see him saving Barry, though, because we may see an alliance there later on. I would love to see that. I would love to see Barry as the Flash working with Eddie. I'd like to see the entire West family knowing about the Flash, and including Eddie Thawne. I'd love to see him know. I want more of this dynamic to grow, and there was the tensions when Barry beat up Eddie, so I'd like to see how he forgives Barry, if he forgives him. He has saved him now, so maybe he has forgiven him. But all in all, this fight was amazing. The special effects I thought were great for the small screen. I love Captain Cold and Heatwave. The conflict of interest between the two characters was very well done. I am really excited to see more of them and see who saved them. Next up on the list, and the final show on the Super Show Roundup, is Arrow. One of my favorite shows on TV right now. Arrow and Flash are constantly competing. Right now, I'd actually say I prefer Flash for the lighter attitude of it, but I do love Arrow. But getting into it, I think without Oliver this part of the season, Diggle and Roy really have to step it up and grow as characters, which I can appreciate. I hated how little Roy got screen time. He didn't get lines. He didn't really get much of anything. His character hasn't grown much since really the first and second season. So I'm excited to see growth between him and Diggle, because the two characters never really got to grow much this series. There's a good dynamic between the two characters as well that I think that they can play off of each other. While in Oliver's absence, I really am excited to see more of it all. I'm really pissed, though, that Diggle is wearing the Arrow suit and he still doesn't get a damn mask. Please, give him the mask. Even when he wasn't wearing the suit, give him fingertip gloves or something so he's not spreading his fingerprints everywhere. Like, just give him something, please. Create a character for him. Do something. They've got the ability to do that. So I think Diggle just needs more. As for Felicity, so far I'm really not liking her this half of the season. She's super cynical, super, I want to say soft. Soft is the best word I can use to describe it. She's trying to save Roy and Diggle, and she's trying to hold on to Oliver, but the second she finds out Oliver is dead, she gives up everything. And she's super, super brutal to Ray, and she went too far. I don't like her character that much right now. I know she'll come back to being the Felicity we know and love. I really hope the Oliver and Felicity thing just kind of skips over, because I didn't like it. I don't like the two together. I do want Oliver and Laurel to be a thing again, as much as they've kind of guided us away from that now. I'm excited to see where all of the relationships go. I was stoked to see that Diggle and Laurel actually had a scene together. I'm not even sure if that's ever even happened before. So seeing the two bond and have that emotional moment mourning Oliver was great. I loved getting to know Diggle and seeing that, oh, he really does still feel like Oliver's bodyguard. He really does still feel like something's missing, even though he knew Oliver was gone all along. I liked seeing that Tatsu and Masio were the ones that saved Oliver. I wasn't all that surprised, but at the same time, while I was live tweeting, I was thinking it was Nissa. I was thinking it was... I had a number of people I thought it could be. He was always in my mind, being Masio, and Masio. I'm glad that it was him. I'm glad that it was Tatsu that brought Oliver back to life. You know, I'm kind of glad it wasn't the Lazarus Pit either, because it may have gotten rid of all of his scars. It may have been a different Arrow than we were used to seeing, and it may have just kind of spoiled this universe for me if Oliver was brought back that way, because to me it's kind of reserved for that. It's reserved for Ra's al Ghul, but it's also reserved for that darker character, the villain almost. So if Tommy does come back, I would like to see him almost be a villain this season, having used the Lazarus Pit. I don't buy that he's gonna be brought back any other way. I know that once a character dies and they go into the Lazarus Pit, it really does twist them in a different way. Just like the Red Hood, Jason Todd, when he's brought back through the Lazarus Pit, he's a darker, grittier, angrier character. I would not have wanted to see that for Oliver. Just like I wouldn't want to see it for any of the other characters. I'm glad they won't use it for Sarah, or they haven't talked about using it for Sarah. But I'm really excited to see Tommy come back, hopefully through the Lazarus Pit. As for Brick, this episode's antagonist, I thought he was a more intimidating version of Ra's al Ghul's first appearance anyways. I didn't like this Ra's al Ghul right away. I love him now after that fight and after the way he handled it all. I am really excited to see more of the Brick though. He was very intimidating. To me, he may be a low-level Ra's al Ghul, and I'm excited to see more of him. I can't wait to see him and Oliver face off. It'll be an interesting fight. And finally, we got to see Black Canary as Laurel Lance. I was pumped. And as soon as I saw those little puck things, I knew, because I saw the little speaker on it, I knew that there was going to be the canary screech. I was so excited. That was something Sarah didn't have. So I'm really pumped to see that Laurel has it. I think she looks a lot better as a Black Canary than I had expected. I had no hopes for it. I didn't think she was going to look good, mostly because of the pictures that surfaced online. It didn't look like it fit to me. I love Laurel Lance as the Black Canary, though, from what we've seen. I thought she was badass. She kicked some serious ass, and even just her catchphrase at the end, "I'm the type of justice you can't run away from," perfect. I'm super excited about where this show's going now. And time for the Super Fan Theory. Now this is going to be the segment at the end of the show where I discuss my theories about where the show's going or what's going to happen. And most of the time they're not going to be just. They're simply my opinion, so I want you to take it as that. First fan theory revolves around Agent Carter and who Peggy Carter is going to marry. We know that Captain America somehow saved her future husband in the war. Everyone thinks it's Daniel Sousa because, you know, he's got the leg and he claims that the captain saved him, whatever. I don't buy it. I think that is far too easy for Marvel to just introduce him in the very beginning of the show and leading him up right to being her husband. I don't buy it. There's not even really chemistry between them, but I do think it's Jack Thompson, Chad Michael Murray's character. There's something there. There's more dynamic between those two than there is with Daniel Sousa and Peggy Carter. So I could see maybe this turning into a love-hate turn, all love kind of romance. We don't know who she marries, so that's an interesting theory, I think. We'll see by the end of the season if anything has progressed there, and if not this season, maybe next. I really do hope that there is a next season, though. I believe that Eddie has a little bit more to do with the Reverse Flash than Tom Cavanaugh has let on. Like I said, I don't buy that he's the complete Reverse Flash. Just like Firestorm isn't just one character, I don't think that the Reverse Flash is just Harrison Wells, especially Eddie Thawne having his last name being Thawne and his name being so close to a very famous version of the villain, of the antagonist. I think maybe there's multiple Reverse Flashes and Harrison Wells is in fact one. I think that I can't see him just being the bad guy. I think that maybe he is going to team up with Barry as a version of the Reverse Flash. So I'm really excited to see more of the Reverse Flash, more of the characters colliding. I do think that Eddie Thawne may have been a Reverse Flash in the future, and with Harrison Wells coming back in time, maybe, just maybe, he screws things up and speeds up the process for Eddie being the villain, because you never know. Maybe Harrison Wells is from farther in the future than 2020, or whenever the newspaper reads. Maybe he's so far in the future that he is a second version of the Reverse Flash, and Eddie Thawne's version has died or something. There's got to be more to it. We never know with all this time travel stuff. We don't even know how Harrison Wells has screwed up this time already. And maybe he's saving Eddie from being the Reverse Flash. Maybe him taking on the mantle is going to save Eddie. You never know. I really do think it's not as simple as saying that he is the Reverse Flash, though. Alright, that is it for the Super Show Roundup this week. Stay tuned for next week's, and stay tuned for weekly videos on other things now. We're going to be building up a series, a bunch of different series on this channel. So get excited, stay tuned, and I'll catch you guys later.